Mike, how are you?
I'm great, thank you, Paul. How you doing?
Oh, really good, really good. It's good to see you. Mike, where in this beautiful world are you?
Today I'm currently in Miami, um, but I'm in my humble abode aboard the Norwegian Gem cruise ship. I'm currently in my cabin, hoping that Elon Musk is pumping enough internet to the ship to make this call nice and smooth, which so far seems to be the case.
So, Mike Davis, drummer, musical director, producer, composer of music. There's a lot there. Um, before we get in too deep, are you on this ship for business or pleasure?
I'm currently working, so yes, for business, and I have a few titles, I suppose, under my current roles on board.
You and I go back a long way.
Yes, we certainly do.
I met you. You came for drum lessons with me like 4 million years ago. Feels like that long ago.
Yes, I would have been, I think 18. I think 18 was when I came and had my first lesson with yourself.
Yeah.
And and here we are after many journeys together.
Yeah. It's funny you should say that, because I found some photos of you and I at Stonehenge the other day.
Oh yeah, crikey! Yeah, when was that?
That was about 10 years ago.
Blimey. Yeah, of course. So I came to you for lessons, and then that changed a bit. I came to work for you, didn't I?
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, you started working for MLC, and you were very brave actually with that. You were very outward thinking because the business was in its infancy. We weren't really ready to do what we were asking of you, but nonetheless you jumped in the car and you got on with it. So well done for doing that.
Yes, I think I can admit as well that perhaps I wasn't ready either. Being 21, I think 20 or 21 when I started, so perhaps I too wasn't fully aware of what it meant to be a drum teacher.
For the benefit of anyone listening, tell me your musical journey, like your memories of picking up the sticks. Like why the drums for a start? Why not anything else for that matter?
Well, it didn't start on drums. It started, as most of us do, on the recorder when I was in primary school, sort of 4 or 5 years old, and for some reason I picked it up pretty quickly. And Buzzing Bee and all those other classics. But I picked it up very quickly, and I couldn't understand why anyone else in the class didn't understand it. And right. I was in year 4 at the time, and we were in assembly, and one of the teachers said that they were offering instrumental lessons and that they had a spot available for someone to learn the trumpet, but this was only available to people in years 5 and 6. But apparently no one else was particularly interested, and I showed an awful lot of interest. And so I started learning the trumpet from a very young age. And again, I seemed to pick it up pretty quickly. And my parents saw my enthusiasm and shipped me off on a Saturday morning to 11th session.
Oh yeah.
Which is, it's going back a bit now. Which was at the time it was a musical music school on a Saturday morning,
right?
And it would sort of be run over 3 classes, and it'd be 3 different bands or whatever. So it would be orchestra or concert band or that kind of a thing. And I was playing trumpet, but they had lots of these little small music rooms, and a lot of them had drums in them. Yeah. And I remember seeing drummers playing, and I thought, oh, that looks like fun. And so I would, instead of doing the actual band rehearsals, I'd sneak off on my own and start playing the drums. And I think the thing I loved about it the most was I didn't have to worry about scales. So I went to my parents and I said, at 8 years old, I said, Mum, Dad, I want to play the drums now. And of course, any parent worth their salt wouldn't just go out and buy a drum kit for multiple reasons. One of them being noise, and also just, you know, an 8-year-old's going to play the drums for 5 minutes and then drop it and not play it again. So my dad said to me, he said, right, we went to the Nottingham Drum Centre. We saw a CB Drums drum kit, which was 250 Great British pounds. And he said, right, if you can save the money for half of that, then I'll pay for the rest of it.
Yeah.
So off I went, and I was washing cars, and I was doing extra chores around the house to try and save any money I could get, all my birthday money and all that kind of stuff, which I was very fortunate to get. And I'd entered a competition. It was the local Young Musician of the Year competition, playing the trumpet. And I did pretty well, and overall I came second, and there was cash prizes for first, second and third positions. And one of the judges came up to me after the results were announced and said, I thought you should have won. And he gave me an extra £5. And I was over the moon, and I ran back to my parents, and I was so happy. But it wasn't because I'd done well in this competition or because this one judge thought I should have won. It was because that extra £5 took me up to the £125 I needed to go and buy the drum kit. So the next day, off we go to the Nottingham Drum Centre, pick up the drums, and the rest is history. I played both instruments simultaneously after that, but the trumpet kind of took a back seat to drums after a while. After a short time, I should say.
I mean, and you know, shout out to Dave as well if he's listening to this. You know, the Nottingham Drum Centre. I mean, sadly, that's not around anymore.
No, unfortunately not. And it was at the original location on the corner.
Oh yeah.
That old place
on Southwell or Southwell Road, depending on where you're from.
Yep. Actually, I owe Nottingham Drum Centre a little bit because it was also the place that I went to that I saw for the first time Thomas Lang's DVD. It was playing. I remember I was there with my dad, and then they mentioned that Thomas Lang was going to do a clinic, and that was the first time I'd seen a drummer that wasn't Travis Barker. So yes, a couple of little links there.
Let's just talk about your drumming musical influences. I mean, Thomas Lang was a big one for you. Why? Tell me. You know, it might be obvious to many people why, but why? You know, why you on the corner of a very busy road in Nottingham, in the drum centre, and then you see Lang on the screen. So, what impact did it have on you?
Well, I think there was a multitude of things. One of the things I saw him doing was a double stroke roll. Now, at this point, at that age, I'd not really had many lessons. In fact, it was single digits the number of drum lessons I'd had. It was all self-taught. So I didn't know what doubles were. My entire world was playing along to Blink-182 albums and things like that. So I was like, oh, what's that? And what's he doing with his feet? Why has he got pedals with both feet? This is unusual. And then as I went to the Thomas Lang clinic, and he was doing doubles with his feet, which obviously is even now pretty preposterous as far as the average drummer goes. But it kind of like, it was one of those big bang moments of like, what is technically capable on the kit. And as the young musicians often are, you know, technique and speed and things like that is something that I feel it's a rite of passage to delve into, and that was what, you know, that's what really got me into it. So from that moment on, it was like, okay, drum rudiments, okay, what else? So he was the first drummer that really showed me a different level of drumming, for sure.
And how old would you have been at that point? So, you know, you've won the you've come second, but essentially you've won the competition because you got your drum set. how many years between getting the set and then like did you become a regular visitor to the drum centre, or was it like, is this in the same period? Or
I would say I was in my early to mid-teens when I
Yeah.
discovered Thomas Lang, and in between that, I was playing in multiple bands on the drums. I was playing for the Cavaliers Dance Band, the Newark and Sherwood Concert Band. So I was getting a mixture of styles. I was also playing in in VFA, which was an originals punk ska band that I grew up in. So I was playing a lot, and that all kind of came about after the competition. In fact, when I won that competition, or I said when I took part, the Cavalier Dance Band offered me to go play with them, and also I had a fantastic opportunity to perform with the at the time it was the Ransom Band in Newark, the brass band, which was a competition level brass band, and actually performed at the Palace Theatre, which was
oh wow.
by far the most nervous I've ever been in my life. Just because I would have been 8-9 years old, playing to a full Newark Palace Theatre with a competition brass band at my back. But experience that I wouldn't change for anything. I think that was probably something that gave me the bug to really want to pursue music as a career.
It's interesting because I've got fond memories of Newark Palace Theatre. Like I did I can't remember if it was 2 or 3 years, but I did a run of pantomimes over. I really can't remember if it was 2 or 3 consecutive years, but it's a lovely theatre. I hope it's still there.
It is. Myself and my dad went to a Pink Floyd tribute acts show this year, so no, it's still going strong.
Oh, good. Yeah, because those theatres in towns need supporting, because they, like you say, they're supporting local musicians, but they're also, and schools, of course, with their performances, but they're also supporting professionals who are in acts that aren't breaking through to big cities. So there's definite place for those. I mean, how many seats do you reckon? What would you say Newark is? 400 or 500 maybe?
Something like that. Yeah, it's not huge.
No, but it's big enough, right? I mean, it's a lovely auditorium.
It is. It's a fantastic venue, and as you say, there is an economy around that scale of theatre around the UK, and I know most of the time they're propped up by pantomimes. That tends to be sort of 2/3 of the income for the year.
Yeah, I mean, I can remember. So the run would start probably early December, let's say, just for argument's sake, but it was during term time. So you'd have the shows I were in, you'd have like a 10:30 a.m., a 1:30 p.m. To get the schools in, coach loads of schools to come and see the shows, and then you'd have a 7:30 p.m. and it was all on the same day.
Oh yeah, 3 show days. Yes, don't miss them.
Yeah, but it must be important for the lifeblood of the theatre, right? It must be.
Absolutely. Yeah. No, I think it is critical to the majority of that. Certainly, that scale of theatre. That's where they make their money.
Rewinding the clock, then you've got your kit. You've discovered Lang. He's clearly influenced you at a key stage in your life. Were you having lessons? I know you said you were mainly self-taught, but were you having lessons?
No, not at that time. It wasn't until it was actually. I remember doing a gig with the VFA with the ska band that I mentioned, and being young and full of testosterone, everything was fast and loud, and I noticed that one day after one of the gigs that I did, right forearm, I was getting a little bit of pain.
Right.
I thought, I probably should, if I'm going to do this in any sustainable way, I should probably maybe learn if I'm doing it correctly, which I wasn't, because I was squeezing the sticks and tensing like crazy.
Yeah.
But so I actually went to a mutual friend of ours, Gary, who, as you know, introduced me to you not long afterwards. But so I went to Gary for some lessons, and he started me down the journey of technique.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was until I was 18. So I would say, yeah, it was single digits, the number of lessons that I had between starting playing the drums and then 18 years old.
He introduced us, and then that's where our journey started, right?
Absolutely. I remember being quite nervous on that day because his setup was very modest and perfectly functional, but obviously MLC Academy, it was a big step up. There was electric drum kits everywhere and things like that. But I remember something that you really, and I've mentioned this to you many times, before we even played a note, you sat me down at the computer and you said, right, who's your favourite drummers? What drummers are you into? And of course I mentioned Thomas Lang and various other people on Drummer World that I'd been checking out. And you watched a few of the videos and you broke down exactly what they were doing. Oh, he's playing American grip, medium height, all that. You went into the details. You broke down exactly what they were doing. And then what you said was, now you know how they're doing it, the rest is just imagination. And it was like you just unlocked this door of like, oh, so it is possible. Like, I can do that stuff. Because there's, often without being told how drummers are doing these things, it does seem like there's this vast chasm of understanding and ability and talent and everything between yourself and these greats. And you bridge the gap in some way for me, for sure.
It's interesting because it's a bit of playing the drums for me is a bit of a Wizard of Oz kind of smoke and mirrors thing, like you can, from the audience's perspective, because the instrument's so physical and it takes up a big footprint on stage, it's a very impressive thing to do, right? And it is anyway. Yes. It is an impressive thing to do. It's a very physical activity, and cognitively, like you're working really hard, but you're super relaxed when you play. These days, like I hope you're super relaxed when you play, and you're at a kind of like cruising altitude. So actually, you're kind of not working as hard as it looks from the other side. So when you are on the other side as a student and you're desperate to understand what's going on, but you don't know what's going on, when somebody helps you to break it down to its component parts, it things just become a little bit more manageable and more achievable, don't they?
Absolutely.
And I think really that was my role with you, because you were already playing a lot. You were ambitious. You wanted to do a lot more things. So in my opinion, you were always going to do a lot more. And it was just about making sure that you'd got technical facility so that you could unlock the imagination. And just because that bit of it, the latter, the imagination bit, that's infinite, isn't it? You can just go forever with that.
Absolutely. And for sure, the process of understanding the steps necessary is massive. And certainly getting, like, you started me down that path. You showed me how to hold the sticks properly, how to be relaxed, how to, what things I need to practice to be able to do the things that the people that I am looking up to are doing. so yeah, that was a critical moment for me, and certainly as a musician.
Yeah. So how? So just for greater context, then, you are a working musician, a professional, and absolutely, you are an amazing player.
Oh, bless you, mate.
You send me these videos on WhatsApp, and I'm blown away. You play all over the world. I mean, literally all over the world. And I want to hear those stories in a minute. But before you tell me those stories, how do you get there? Like when did you wake up and just think, well, I'm going to do that?
So I think music was always what I wanted to do. Obviously, you know, I had dreams of being a pilot for a short period of time. As you know, as we all have these sort of loftier goals, but everything seemed to work, and that's been true throughout my life. Whenever I tried to stray away from music, it's always brought me straight back to music. It's gone wrong for whatever reason, things outside of my control, and then all of a sudden, boom, I get a gig, or boom, something goes right in the music world. And so,
yeah,
I think the moment that things really changed for me was the day that I said, every penny I earn can only come from music.
Wow, that's quite a statement.
It was, but it was because I was dabbling. You know, I was in my sort of late teens, early 20s, a similar time to when we worked together. At MLC Academy.
Yeah.
And I remember I was sort of I'm doing a little bit of temp admin work here, a little bit of something there, in between the gigs that I was doing. And I realised, thankfully, that the only way that I'm going to make this work is if I'm sort of force myself into that situation. It's like the only way I can earn money is from music. Because everything else is a distraction. Everything else is stopping me from being able to do music, and so I just had to make it work, and I had to put the work in. I had to go out and get the gigs, and you know, it's almost like a rite of passage, or you know, as they say, paying your dues. I went for a long period not earning much money.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I put it this way: I wasn't bothering the tax threshold for a year or two. You know what I mean?
I understand that, because neither was I at the beginning. You know, and I wonder if that's even possible today. Like, I wonder if young aspiring musicians can even do what we did. But then I suppose we were both lucky because we'd got support around us, you know. We'd got like we weren't trying to live in a house or a flat, right? Like, you know, you I guess you were living at home with your family.
Absolutely. Yes, I was going to say a big part of my success was having supportive parents who you know had the opportunity to be able to help me, and did. And I think that is a crucial part, certainly for my story. Is it possible today? I'm not sure. I mean, I think with what I do nowadays, I'm pretty detached from the normal day-to-day world and the sort of local gigging scene. I know it exists still, but is there the scope for musicians to come up the way I did and that you did? I'm not 100% sure.
You say local scene. I mean, you're in Miami, which is amazing. I mean, I'm absolutely not in Miami, but I mean, I take your point. I totally take your point. But it's always fascinated me that I'll get a message from you and you'll say, "Oh, I'm in Sydney," or, you know, "I'm in Miami," or I'm in Norway, or you're like you've literally, music has taken you all over the world.
Yeah, I mean, I've been extremely fortunate. I put in the work, but I've also been extremely fortunate with the life I've had. And I've been doing this for 12 and a half years now, and I've seen a pretty good chunk of the world, and I wouldn't take any of it back. It's been such an incredible experience. The travel, the music, the people, the experiences, and for me, that's kind of that's all that's left, isn't it? When you're on your deathbed, without wanting to get too morbid, like it's the experiences that stay there. And I've already had some unbelievable experiences. I've seen a lot of the world and been paid to do it and played music, and I endeavour to be grateful and remind myself of that reality and that it is something special.
I obviously subscribe to that. Like, the pursuing a career in music, in the arts, is a pursuit of lifestyle, isn't it? Yes, of course, you need to get paid, and you should get paid, and you should get paid very well. But it's a choice, and one hand gives and the other hand takes. So, it does come at a sacrifice. It must come at a sacrifice when you're... you must have an incredible life, but at the same time, you are constantly on the move, right?
Yeah, it's not for everybody, in the same that, people who are in the military, it's a very specific life. And if you want to put roots down and you want to have a family and do all those kind of things, you can't really do it with this life, or it's extremely difficult to do with this life.
Yeah.
Because you, as you say, you're away for all the time. You're out of reach. You're in different time zones. It's there is always sacrifices to be made, but again, it's down to the individual and what they value.
Yeah, and you must have worked with some incredible musicians as a result.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, don't get me wrong. It goes both ways. The spectrum goes both ways. But no, I've had the chance to work with some utterly world-class musicians. Even the bass player we have on this ship right now is unbelievable. I've worked with some mind-blowingly good Ukrainian pianists, and South American saxophonists and people like that who just are next level, and are kind of on their upward trajectory, passing through via ships, as well as some wonderful artists, guest entertainers and stuff like that we work with as part of our job. So I've been very fortunate to work with some incredible people.
Within that context, are you reading, or are you improvising, or do you rehearse? Like how do you structure a show? And actually, is every performance a show, as it were, or is there some bar work on board, or like what is your working day? What is your week?
So let me break it down in terms of what I do on board. So as I mentioned earlier, I have multiple roles here. So there are 3 musical roles, if you like. First and foremost is a drummer in the show band, or the orchestra, depending on different cruise lines call it different things. So the show band's main function is to work in the theatre. That's with the production cast on board, singers and dancers doing musical reviews and Broadway-style shows, and also to work with guest entertainers, fly-on acts who come on board. It can be instrumentalists, it could be singers, it can be jugglers, comedians, whoever. So that as well as sometimes playing in lounges as well.
Mm-hmm.
So as the drummer, yes, for the production shows, you are playing to a click. You are reading the shows down. For some companies, the show band rehearses, but for a lot of them, they don't. So you can join a ship and day one, you're doing a production show. So sight reading is probably at the top of the list of things that you need to be able to do on board. And then second to that, I would say, is a knowledge of musical genres, because you have to be able to play everything, whether it's from big band music or pop or funk or rock or Latin and everything in between.
Right.
So that's the show band role. In the lounges, we could play jazz standards, we could do a Motown set, we could do a 70s disco set. In fact, 2 cruises ago, that's exactly what we did. It could be smooth jazz. So you really need to have a good understanding of many different types of music. And of course, within when you're playing jazz and stuff like that, there is improvisational parts in there too. So sometimes you're reading note for note what you have to play. Sometimes you're interpreting a lead sheet or a less detailed chart, and sometimes it's a jazz lead sheet and you're just having fun with it. So that's the role of the show band drummer. My second role is the musical director for the show band.
Okay.
So that means when I'm in the theatre, obviously I'm leading the band. If it's not to a click, I'm conducting everything and counting everything off, leading, running rehearsals, making corrections, etc. And then in the lounges, it's my job to prepare the charts and for the sets we're going to do. That's everything from just choosing what jazz standards we're going to play tonight to doing full arrangements for a 7-piece orchestra. And everything in between.
You need to have a very good understanding of harmony, right? Not just rhythm.
Certainly, for the musical director role, absolutely yes. Because you need you need good ears as well, because you need to know if someone does something, makes a mistake, or there's an error in the chart, for example, you need to be able to hear that and pick it up, and then correct it.
Yeah.
So yeah, having good ears is definitely very useful when you're trying to be a musical director. An understanding of music theory on a broader scale is certainly very useful.
So your third role, so you drummer, musical director.
Yes, and so the third role is the bandmaster, which is more of an administrative role. So I'm responsible right now for a department of 17 musicians, which is broken up into a 5-piece party band, a 4-piece Jamaican band, and 2 principal musicians, so a solo pianist who sings, a solo guitarist that sings, and then the 6-piece show band that's on board. And I'm responsible for essentially all the administrative functions, so scheduling, timesheets, training notifications, disciplinary. Crikey, even if their toilet doesn't flush properly, I'm getting the call and I'm the one that's got to report it. So it's sort of it's very much a managerial role.
And leadership as well.
Absolutely, it is people management. It is, you are trying to get the best out of your team. And sometimes it is about people as well, on a more personal sense. You've got people out here that have families back home that have children, and they're on an 8-month contract, and sometimes it's difficult, right. and sometimes people do struggle, and they're thinking about leaving, or they're sort of not able to function properly on board, and so there is an element of speaking to a human being about life and again sort of getting them back on track. So it's a pretty hefty role for sure, along with playing and everything else. But yeah, I love it, and I love the management aspect as well as the playing. So
I mean, that's a huge journey, isn't it? Not just like physically in terms of like, well, there you are in Miami today, but like the complete human holistic journey that you're on, from testosterone driven drummer that's just got to do it, through to now, well, I'm considering the emotional needs of musicians who have got families back home, and trying to keep a working team together so that thousands of guests can be entertained every day of the week.
Absolutely. And I think for me, it comes from not wanting to stay in a comfort zone. When I first came to Ships, it was intimidating. I probably wasn't 100% good enough for the gig when I first got here. But it's such a specific gig, and the requirements are so broad. It is difficult to be fully prepared before you come out here. But yeah, so I was out of my comfort zone. I put the work in, I practiced, and I became what I believe to be a very competent show band drummer. And then,
absolutely,
then it became comfortable. And so then I stepped up into the musical director role, which, again, it is intimidating. All of a sudden, everything's on you. The shows are on you. You're running rehearsals and things are going wrong, and the entertainers are getting, stressed, or their charts are no good. There's all sorts of these other things that you have to consider now, and you're having to organise the sets, and it's like, well, are the guests going to enjoy this, and do I have enough material to make this work? So that was, I was out of my comfort zone again. And same with the bandmaster role, which I did simultaneously. I became the musical director and the bandmaster at the same time. But again, it's that pushing myself out of my comfort zone, and now again I've got to that stage where doing this is comfortable. There's not many scenarios or situations that I would feel uncomfortable. There's big, like, things like arranging and stuff like that. That's a bigger journey than it's like, I've completed arranging now. No, that's a much bigger journey, which obviously ties into composing as well. But yeah, so always just striving to be better, and to see what the next step is.
So in terms of the audiences, are they local to where you are, or are they British or American, or like who are you performing to?
So for the cruise line that I work for, or the company is Norwegian Cruise Line Holdings, which has 3 cruise lines within it in its umbrella, which is Norwegian Cruise Line, Oceania, and Regent Seven Seas. Now they are American cruise lines, so predominantly the clientele tends to be American. But it also depends where in the world the ship is. If you're sailing out of Southampton, you're going to get a lot of Brits. If you're sailing out of Miami, you're going to have a lot of Americans. And certainly demographically, it also depends on the itinerary and the cruise. If you're doing a 14-day cruise in Alaska, it tends to be a more mature crowd. Because they want to see beautiful landscapes. If you're doing a 3-day cruise to the Bahamas, well, it tends to be a younger clientele because it's a bit of a booze cruise, and it's just it's a weekend party essentially. And also the cruise line as well, like the Regent Seven Seas, which is the company I've been working a lot with recently. It's a 6-star all-inclusive luxury cruise line. It's certainly not cheap, and it tends to be older clientele who are retired and have got a few pennies to spare. So that there is a big mix, and of course you have to tailor your music to that and your performances to that. There's no good doing a big band tribute on a booze cruise, because it's not the right kind of thing. Just like there's no point in playing 2000s pop tunes and stuff like that. I mean, not all of them. Some of them would work, but you just have to be smart with your audience, because ultimately that's what you are doing it for, is the audience.
And you've got different working contexts and environments, haven't you? Because you've got the show, so people are coming to watch the show, and then you've got lounge work and party work, and that's a different consideration, isn't it?
Absolutely, and that's what I love about this job is the variety. Day one of the cruise, you might be doing, you'll do a smooth jazz set in the lounge, and then maybe you'll do a Motown set, and so lounge mic comes out, and the way that you interact with the guests on the microphone is different. Then day two, you're doing a sort of a 70s and 80s musical review show, and at the top of the show I've got to slide down a pole and fire the audience up before I go and sit back on the drums, and I'm wearing a fishnet top, and everything in between. So true story.
Oh, you just beat me to my next question. I was going to ask you if you got any memorable gigs, but there we are. I'm never going to be able to unsee that.
I'll send you the picture.
Given that you are people managing, and you are managing productions, you're managing people's time as well, and choosing music to suit different audiences. How do you maintain your enthusiasm for the drums? Or if you're brave enough, do you? You're playing more than most people I know. You're playing like every day of the week professionally. That must be tiring.
Absolutely. The way I always explain this is, in any job, you can become desensitized to how special it is. And, when you're playing every day for 3 or 4 hours a day, sometimes more, sometimes less, but that's kind of your average, in 6.5 months, it does become tiresome. And I love music. I love performing music, but it can be difficult. Am I waking up at 6 a.m. and doing 3 hours of practice every day? Absolutely not. I could, but for me personally, I think I would burn out if I was trying to.
But I would argue that you don't need to.
Well, this is it. I feel like I'm able to do what's required of the job. Now, being inspired, I think, is something different. I always try and find new music, find new things to listen to, or even with composing and arranging and stuff like that. I'm always trying to find stuff like that. I've been very fortunate on this current contract that we've had a lot of charter cruises, which is where a separate company hires the ship and sells their own cruise, and we've had a lot of musical charters. Some of them are quite well known. There was the Keep the Blues Alive cruise, which is a huge blues cruise. Joe Bonamassa has been running it for many years, and I got to see some incredible performers there, including Mr. Bonamassa himself, as well as Judith Hill, people like that.
Wow.
We had Cruise to the Edge, which was fantastic. It's a prog rock cruise. We had many sort of prog heavy hitters, including Mr. Marco Minimum, playing with Guthrie Govan on guitar in the Aristocrats. Craig Blundell was there as well. So it's the contrast that cruise ships offer is sometimes wild, because the previous contract was 6.5 months where it was on a very small ship and I was the only drummer on board. So for 6.5 months, the only drummer I heard live was myself. And then on this ship, I've seen these sort of musical giants performing on the same stages that I do and in the little venues. So again, just another example of what a fantastic opportunity ships have been for me, and continue to be. But I think in terms of the performing aspect, there's a story that I tell to all the musicians when I first meet them, and we sort of have our little musical meeting of why music is important and why performing music is important. So it's a few years ago. I was on a ship, just doing a regular lounge set, maybe like a 7:30 evening set. Nothing major. Maybe there was 30, 40 people in the lounge. And this little old lady comes up to the stage, and she asks us to play the song "Misty," which is a beautiful jazz ballad by, I think it's Errol Garner, I believe. And I've played that song hundreds of times, I'm sure, in my career now. And so we said, yes, of course we can play that song for you, absolutely. And she says, yes, it was mine and my husband's song. I thought, that's lovely, yeah, we'll play it for you right now. She says, yeah, he died 3 days before the cruise, but he made me promise. Me promise to take the cruise, and of course it was like, oh, okay. So we start playing Misty, and it's a really beautiful song. And she walks into the middle of the dance floor on her own. There's no one else there, and she puts her arms up like she's dancing with her husband. And for the whole song, she slow dances. And at the end of the song, she turns to the band with tears streaming down her face, and blows us all a kiss. And of course, you know, us in the band were like, right, what's the next song then? What would do? You know, in typical fashion. But what that really taught me was you never know what a song might mean to someone. It doesn't matter if it's the first time you're playing the song or the 500th or the 1,000th time you're playing that song. You don't know if there's someone in the audience. Maybe that was the song that they used to play with their father while they were working on a car, or maybe that their nan used to sing that song. So you never know what a song might mean to someone, and so therefore the responsibility we have as musicians, and I think this works both for when you're playing other people's music and your own music, the responsibility we have to take care of that. That's kind of always in my mind, and so whenever I am performing a song, I try and give the song the utmost respect and perform it to the best of my ability in that moment, just in case,
That's really powerful. It's a powerful story, that is. I mean, but it's genuinely, it's lovely, and it's. Can you imagine? I mean, I know you were there, but you were there from another perspective, weren't you? You're just trying to get through the tune, but what a story. But in terms of the connection to the music, that's where I've seen a million musicians get it wrong, where they're playing somebody else's music, and as you rightly said, it can mean so much to somebody else. So there they are playing somebody else's music, and they're all over it, they're just jamming and ad-libbing and the tunes become barely recognisable. I just, that was one of the reasons I stopped. Just couldn't. I was part of that problem, by the way. But it was
aren't we all?
It just but I just lost it. Just I was gigging too much at the time, and we it just, tunes wouldn't sound like. I remember playing Dock of the Bay every weekend, right, and it sounded like a country and western tune.
Yeah.
This staccato walking bass, dum dum dum, and I'm like, what's and of course you respond to it, right? No, in real time, and you play, and all of a sudden it takes on a whole new life of its own. But it was never meant to. I remember I've said to people I'd been playing Car Wash badly for 20 years. Do you know what I mean? Do you know what I mean? It didn't sound like Car Wash anymore.
Yeah.
And that was a big deal for me, because like what was I doing? What was I doing? And it was a misunderstanding between working in the entertainment industry and trying to be artistic or clever or arrogant, but I blurred it all. You know, does that make sense?
No, totally, and I think that's it is a real concern, I think, for all musicians, because unless you are someone who performs exclusively their own music, but in which case, as I mentioned earlier, I think it's still, the responsibility is still there, even though it's yours. The second you put it out into the world, it's no longer just yours.
Yeah.
But yeah, with what you're talking about, I think it's a muscle. For me, it's a muscle, and it's one that I strain on the last few reps every time I have to play Sweet Caroline, and I'm sure I'm not alone in that. But it's one of those, like, okay, if I was able to choose, I would not be playing this song right now. However, every time you play it, the audience go crazy and they sing along and they seem to love it. So we got to do it. You know what I mean? That's what I'm a working musician. You know, it's not my song. But yeah, for sure, it is a muscle, and it's just sometimes you have to put the reps in that you don't particularly want to do. But I will take that small amount of pain because of everything else. And for sure, like the balance, as you mentioned, the balance of being of reproducing the work in its intended form, but then also adding your own artistic license. It's subjective, isn't it? I mean, does it sound good? Did the audience enjoy it? Did the band enjoy it? I don't know. It's kind of like it is ultra subjective, because if you played it, if you played Dock of the Bay in that country style and people were liking it, then it's difficult to say it was wrong.
Yeah, no, it's a fair point. I mean, I remember working in a Rat Pack tribute show 20 years ago now, and the album that we were doing was Live at the Sand,
right?
And everyone in the band that I was working in read, like, the musical director would come in and he would give everyone their parts. But then people would come up to me in the interval or afterwards and say, well, they didn't play it like that. Like they knew they were so fanatical. They were such fans of the work that, and especially when you're trying to do like a Frank, Dean, and Sammy, it's a different thing. But I guess the point I'm making is they knew this stuff backwards as fans. Yeah. I've been chatting with somebody about like doing a Phil Collins Genesis show, and don't worry, I'm not going to sing ever. But I like if I do that, I've already had a chat with myself. Tone is as important as the notes, especially when you're playing Phil's tunes, because that kit sound is an animal all of its own.
Yeah, get your concert toms out.
yeah. I know. Can you imagine that? But that may or may never happen. But what I'm saying is like my approach has changed completely. Even though I've not done much gigging in the last 12, 13 years, but like I approach it all differently myself. Do you feel that you are constantly evolving? I mean, you must be in terms of park the admin role for a minute, because that's a role all of itself, isn't it? But like the MD the MD role and the playing role, you, as you said, you might not need to get up every day and practice your chops, but you must be growing all the time.
Yeah, I mean, it's difficult not to. when you're performing every day for hours every day, and often with different musicians from all over the world. I mean, I can give you a breakdown of the musicians on this ship. The bass player is from Brazil, saxophone player is from Argentina, the trumpet player is from Ukraine, the trombone player and pianist are from America, from the USA. So, you know, and that's kind of representative. You know, you are working from musicians from all over the world who have been educated in different ways, who have different strengths. You know, some of them might not be great at reading, but they can fake their way through it and it sounds amazing. Some guys are absolute killers in the theatre and with the Broadway cabaret music and stuff like that. But then when we're trying to play some jazz standards, they just struggle with that side of it. And so, you know, it's difficult not to grow when the ebb and flow of what you're playing and who you're playing with changes so often, because there's always something to learn from people, whether it's an idea that they produce during a solo, or you know, like I say, this bass player we got on board, his feel is so good, and we locked in on day one, which, as all drummers and bass players know, that's one of the most satisfying feelings. So yeah, the musical growth, it does happen all the time, and I don't have a hard and sort of solid opinion on should music be reproduced as originally done. You know, it's so because when you're not the original musicians, so you can and unless you are a tribute act and you are striving to be as close to the original as possible, then that's a different ball game. But with the band I have on board, bear in mind that none of us had met each other before we even walked on the ship. So day one, you walk on the ship, it's six strangers sight reading on stage. So you know, the capacity for like delving into the deeper aspects of My Girl and why it sounds that way, and you know, the tambourine, where does that, you know, it's not necessarily there, and so there is more space for personal interpretation, and of course, you know, the bass player from Brazil, he's going to hear it differently, he's going to play it differently, because you know, he grew up playing different stuff, same as our American pianist. He's going to hear things differently, he's going to play things differently. The beauty of it, in my opinion, is that it comes together to form something of quality. And I think as long as that is the end goal, to produce something that's as high a quality as possible, then I don't think you can lose.
No, that's really interesting.
And
really
just one other thing on that point as well. Sometimes it doesn't necessarily matter what you're playing. I know earlier I mentioned the sort of aiming your music at the demographic, but I also think that people appreciate quality. It's not necessarily all about what you play, but how you play it. You could do a big band tribute to a bunch of 20 or 30-year-olds, but if you're killing it and the band is tight and everyone's playing their asses off, like, people are going to enjoy it because it's high level. Do you know what I mean? If the quality is there, then I think it works.
Yeah, and you know that phrase, like, give the drummer some. Like, you've every right to have fun when you're up there.
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. Now I'm going to ask you about gear, but I'm not going to ask you what sticks you're using. You've described a scenario where you could be playing in a lounge, you could be playing a show, or playing a party band, like a nightclub. Are you moving gear around all day, every day, or have you got multiple drum sets on board?
So yeah, we have each venue has a drum set up already.
Okay.
So I'm not moving gear around per se. I do bring some of my own gear. I bring my own cymbals. I bring my own kick pedal. On obviously sticks and things like that. But that's a personal choice. That's not necessarily required by the cruise line. So yeah,
do you send out like a rider that says like I you know, I want this many toms or this many cymbal stands or what, like, or is it is it like just deal with whatever you've got?
It's very much deal with whatever you've got. I mean, sometimes on board the kits are old or they're not that higher quality kits, or sometimes they're fantastic. It is kind of hit and miss. You are at the mercy of the people that were there before you, whether they've ordered new equipment, all that kind of a thing. There's certainly not the scope to sort of demand anything particularly special. It is a case of like, this is what we've got, this is what you have to play, and we make it work. Thankfully, the only kits that tend to be bad, or just equipment in general, is the stuff by the pool. The pool is where musical equipment goes to die, just because you've got the sea air. One of the pools on this ship, for example, on the stage, there's a pool directly behind you, and it's a saltwater pool. So, I mean, I think you've seen. I've sent you pictures before. The cymbals are rusty. All of the hardware's rusty. In fact, the hi-hat stand that we have here right now, the hi-hat clutch has seized to the top of the hi-hat, so you can't take it off. You can't adjust it. You can't do anything. So, but that.
And that's out overnight, is it, as well?
I mean, it's like if you get a bit of salt water down in that groove, it's just going to corrode everything. It's going to rust it all together. So, yeah. But it's the pool.
There must be massive variations in temperature as well, right?
Absolutely, and that's not too bad for the drums. Obviously, you can change the tuning and throw out that a bit, but it's worse for the horns. If you're coming from an air-conditioned cabin like this one and your horn's cold, and then you go up to a super humid and hot pool set, it can make a huge difference.
I can remember once I was playing this gig in Lucerne in Switzerland, and this festival was you take the cable car up. I don't know the exact height, but it was high, and the air was thinner.
Right.
Okay, and you get there. This is natural bowl, and from the stage you could just see the rest of the Swiss part of the Alps, and it was the vista was just incredible. And I remember thinking, wow, like this is amazing. And I'm on this stage, and I'm doing a sound check, and it's my cymbals and my snare drum. I've still got the snare drum. I played it earlier today actually, but the thing was I'd got my sound the best I could, because obviously it's what it's like where perhaps you do or you don't, because you must get engineers that are used to who you are and what you're doing. But when you do these kind of festivals, it's just get the sound right and you just deal with it, and so I got a sound, and then the sun went down, and the temperature, it was freezing, right? And this was in the height of summer, but there was such a contrast in temperature. And to go on stage to play the first number, and the snare drum head has bowed in, right? It's just and it's wet.
Oh crikey!
And it it was dead. I couldn't tune it. It didn't matter how much I tuned the thing up. Like it was over.
Yep.
I just makes me think if you're out, let's say you're out there and one of your heads goes or the pedal or whatever. Are you carrying spares or do you go and grab a snare off a different kit? Like how do you deal with logistics?
So we have spares on the ship.
Right.
We do have we have spare heads. Again, you're at the mercy of, have people ordered any, do you have them in stock? Generally, you do tend to have a good amount of drum heads. Again, generally there's enough snares and things knocking around to cover everything, even if one does break.
Okay.
So yeah, there's not gear wise, that doesn't tend to be an issue. Certainly, I mean, I've had things break, but I mean that can happen anyway. I've had a kick pedal chain snap during a production show.
Oh wow, yeah.
Which you know, but you know, the techs are professionals. They came in, they took the pedal away, they got another one and chucked it on, and you know, 30, 45 seconds later, off we go again. You know,
Excellent. Yeah.
But yeah, so there's, I wouldn't say gear wise there's anything specifically that's a challenge out here. Depending on the ship, obviously.
So. Yeah, of course. So I mean, the other day I get a WhatsApp message from you, and you sent me the beginnings of this overture.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So, is that something that you're looking to explore to keep your creative juices flowing, or is that you having fun? You know, is that you connecting with like a younger version of yourself, where it's like, well, actually, I'm just a musician. I'm just trying new things out. You know, or are you thinking that you might compose more professionally, or don't know yet? But regardless, it was stunning stuff. Like I really enjoyed it.
Oh, bless you, mate. Thank you. Appreciate that. Well, to be honest, you inspired me a lot when you brought out the first album that you've done. You know, which is all your music, and it's something that I've not done for a while, or certainly since I can remember. Was to create something that's just me, for me. You know, I am a working musician. There's not a whole lot of artistry and you know, that much input. Certainly on the day to day. Yes, doing arrangements. There's some creative license and stuff, and I have done arranging professionally. I've done arranging for Norwegian Cruise Line and a few others. So that's been great. But this is certainly for me, and I think probably for a similar reason that you did it was just to create it, to have it there, to be like, this is the songs in my head, you know, like this is what I hear. And so no, there's no specific goal. There's no real I will have an album by this date or anything like that. I'm putting as little pressure as possible, and who knows, you know. I think we should also always try these things. You don't know where it's going to end up. I mean, our good friend Johnny, you know, as you've discussed with him many times, and he's discussed on his podcasts, you know, he was a kit player, and he's sort of had a go at this snare drumming stuff, and now all of a sudden it's taken off, and he's found this whole new career and vocation, which he's doing extremely well in. And I think that's just having the courage to explore without judging too hard. I think the having those centurions at the gate, kind of judging every creative thought or every idea that comes out, I think that can be a bit of a problem. I think it's much easier to get all of the ideas out and then sort of extrapolate it and refine it from there. Is a much more successful, but also just enjoyable process. You know, all the stuff that I sent you it's not the final form. It's just stuff that I heard. It wasn't mixed particularly well. It was just what I did, and that's okay. I think the second you start thinking, well, hold on, I've got to make sure that the EQ is perfect on the French horns before I record any sounds with it, and then you know what I mean. It doesn't work, certainly for me anyway. I think that approach to being creative of just get it out, whatever you hear, good, and then if you go a bit too far, okay, you can bring it back again, but don't try and create the perfect thing before you even record a note, you know.
No, I understand that. I mean, you know, we three get together whenever we can, whenever you're back, right? And you know, you and Johnny, we have great friendships, but it's an interesting journey because obviously I taught you both. I'm not responsible for you both because you you've gone out there and created your own careers, and that's wonderful. I don't take any responsibility for that, but I take a lot of pride in watching you both excel in what you do. But you both inspire me, and I did my stuff because it was floating around in my head. Because all musicians play music in their head, don't they? Like that, like we just do. We're always hearing stuff and playing stuff and imagining things. But I needed to do it, and I was listening to a podcast, and the producer just said, make music for you, and if somebody else likes it, well, that's wonderful, isn't it? But like, make it for you, and that bit set me free, because in a kind of hypercritical space that the internet is, for sensitive musicians or artists of any type to put stuff out, so like it's a big thing, I think it's easy to underestimate how big it is to sort of say, I made this, please listen to it. That was a big journey for me. But the process of doing it, you've just got to do it and enjoy it.
Absolutely. And kind of trust yourself and trust in the process, that like there will be, like, the product will be good. Because I think it's easy at any point to compare to, because I mean I had perfect examples the other day. A friend of mine won an amazing competition. Dream Theater did this competition with Spitfire Audio.
Oh wow!
And essentially, you sort of recorded a version, a portion of one of their songs, and my friend won the competition. Which is amazing, because he posted, his story was the keyboard player from Dream Theater saying, "Oh, well, thank you, Neil Purdy, great work. You've won the competition." And I think he's going to meet the band at some point when they come over, and all the rest of it. But it was tremendous. It was absolutely tremendous work, the stuff he did, and it was all orchestral. And I felt that little comparison, that little joy thief just go, well, hold on a second, this is way better than what you're doing. And I just went, hold on a second. Like, you can't do that. I mean, I feel very blessed with my friendship group. I've got yourself and Johnny, a very good friend of mine, Lee Gretton, is a producer from Lincoln, tremendously successful. I'm very blessed with high performing, high achieving friends, and it can be easy, especially. I mean, we could sit here and dissect the issues with social media all day, but more so nowadays, I think that kind of voice of like, oh, you'll never look like that, you'll never sound like that, you'll never be able to create something of that high quality. It's just not true, because it's you creating it. And that's the value, isn't it? That's the value. It's yours.
Yeah, and actually we're and you said it to me the other day, like, we're in this amazing position where we can actually create this stuff now.
Oh yeah, totally.
I mean, there's no way I could realise what I hear in my head without all of that tech. There's just no way.
Oh yeah, I mean, look what I'm doing. I'm in a a tiny little cabin on a cruise ship in the middle of the ocean, and I've got a recording studio here. I've got a microphone. I've got a MIDI keyboard. I've got my MacBook. I've got audio interface. Like, I've got everything I need to be able to record to as high a quality as I would like. Certainly with the MIDI instruments and the VSTs that are available nowadays. yeah, it's such an amazing time to be a musician. The bar for entry in terms of what you need to create is so low nowadays, which is fantastic.
Yeah, it's much more inclusive, isn't it? You know, you don't need multi-million-pound studios because companies like Spitfire have done that for us.
Absolutely. I mean, crack, I was using their free BBC Orchestra VST, and it's to say that it costs nothing. It's unbelievably convincing. So yeah,
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, I'm a massive fan of all of those players in that space. You know, like all the different companies, because they're setting us free. You know, they're enabling us to do. Just to bring this to a close, because I've taken up a lot of your time, but if you think about your journey to where you are now, and here we are having this chat, what would you say to a young person? Maybe they're a teenager, maybe they're early 20s, and they're like, I want to do that. Is it about the playing, or do you have to take that for granted? Like, or not granted rather, but take that as a given. Like, of course you can play. Like, is it the reading? What do they need to hone? What skills do they really need to work on so that they might have a career that's similar to yours?
So in terms of your musical ability, for sure you have to be able to read to a good standard. And you know, there's certain levels of reading. There is clinging on by your fingernails and just about making it through a chart. There's playing a chart really well, not making any errors.
Yeah.
And then the level I aspire to, and I'd like to think that I'm almost there, is to be able to read a chart and the reading, your reading ability be such that you have this additional capacity to be able to add something, so to add your own flavour creatively, or to anticipate something. Also, I mean, I guess as the musical director, you know, I've always got to have, you know, one ear sort of listening to the band while reading my chart. But yeah, so reading is definitely something you need to be able to do. Have a good understanding of different genres, like understand forms when you're playing jazz standards, understand how to play a bossa nova or a samba authentically, or as authentically as you can, which of course is just listening and playing along as well. Have a real, like, the broader your horizons musically, the more comfortable you're going to be on the gig. Yeah, so musically, that's kind of what I would say. Do you have to be a master in any one field? Not really. I mean, I'm not a jazz player, but I can hang and I can swing. And, you know, if we're doing more of a jazz club experience, if you like, I can solo, I can do those things. Would you book me for Carnegie Hall in a trio? Probably not. But
Well, I don't know. You might, but yeah.
But you know, like just sort of jack of all trades is kind of the requirements. The being a Swiss Army knife of a drummer or a musician, as I always say it.
Yeah.
But then the outside of and playing to a click. But I mean, if you're at the stage where you learn these things, I would like to think that people can play with a click anyway. The other aspect of this gig is the lifestyle. It is regimented. You can't be late for things. You know you have to do emergency drills. You have an emergency roll on board. There are restrictions on the amount of alcohol that you can drink, or there's supposed to be. You know, it's not for everyone. It is a very specific way of life. But then broadening out to just being a professional musician, I think certainly nowadays, like, being good enough is just a given. Like, being a good musician is no longer the bar for entry. It's about being good to work with. You know, being reliable, having put the work in ahead of time. I'm not saying that you have to be a social butterfly, but just being being positive, being friendly. Because I've worked with
being a nice person,
and because I've worked with musicians that are phenomenal, but they can't get themselves to the gig on time, and they're confrontational,
right?
And they don't turn up to the trainings, and they're giving security trouble on the gangway because of whatever, and it's like those certainly this is a corporate environment. Make no mistake, this is a corporate environment. So if you don't fit, then you're not going to fit, and you're going to end up going home. It's also the way I describe ships as well. It's whatever you want it to be. It is very flexible out here. If you want this to be a way to see the world and travel and have these amazing experiences, you can do that. As a musician, you're going to have the time to do that. You're getting paid. You can go out and experience all these things. If you want to have the party lifestyle and drink and all that kind of stuff, well, you can. There is a bar. There is a crew bar. There are drinks on board. Nowadays, it's more strict, but you can have that lifestyle. You can wake up at 2:00 in the afternoon and then go have lunch and play the gig and do whatever. It can be that. If you want it to be a super focused contract, and you practice and you learn a language and you go to the gym and you do all these kind of things, it can be that as well. It is whatever you want it to be. But it is a tremendous place for experiences. I mean, we talked about a few of the places I've been, some of the things I've seen and done. I went to the Winter Olympics in Sochi in Russia, 2014, I think it was. I've walked the streets of Istanbul at 3 a.m, which I don't think my mum would be very, very happy about hearing, but that's, I've had that experience. I've seen I saw a riot actually right in front of me in Istanbul. There's just so many of these life experiences that I would just never have been able to have. I never dreamed of seeing New York. I never dreamed of seeing Australia. And Sydney and all these places that you see in the movies or TV or whatever. And I've been fortunate enough to see the world and to see the places we live and to experience different cultures and things like that. So while there is always drawbacks to this side of life, like for me at least, the positives far outweigh it. So if someone wants to do it, I go for it.
There's some amazing advice there, and kind of all wrapped up around experience. It's fantastic. What time is it for you there?
So right now it is 2:30.
And what time's your first gig?
So currently we are on a charter cruise. This is the Lindsay Sterling charter, so the show band is not required to play. So for the next 4 days there is no playing. So I'm just on administrative duties.
Wow.
Yeah, no, it was strange when I got here. We had a bunch of them. So for these ones, none of the musicians on board are playing. We have other duties to do, whether that's standing on doors or just assisting with the charter team. But the 17th of May is when we get back into regular sailing, and that's when all hell breaks loose because we have our production cast coming on board and we go into install, which is a bit of a grueling procedure. Lots of rehearsals, getting the shows prepared and installed on the ship. But yeah, so soon we'll be back to it, and I'm looking forward to it because I'd rather be playing than sitting around.
Mike, it's been an absolute pleasure. Thanks for taking the time. Really great to catch up and to learn so much about what it is you actually do. So thank you very much.
My pleasure. Any time at all, and I'll see you when I get back.
Yeah, stay safe out there.
You too. Thanks, Paul.
Thanks, bye-bye.